All right, hello everyone. Happy June 16th. It is Bloomsday. Bloomsday is celebrated in a lot of places, but mainly is an Irish holiday in honor of the great Irish author and novelist James Joyce, who wrote some really interesting and really odd stuff that when you get older you probably check out. Ulysses is probably his most favorite thing. So it is June, it is Bloomsday, and so there's celebrations all over Ireland today. That was actually a song called Down by the Sally Gardens, it was a poem put to music from the great William Yeats, who is an Irish author, and that is one of James Joyce's favorite poems, so it seemed appropriate. That was Clannad, the Celtic man from Ireland, so there you go. Happy Bloomsday. You literary people, maybe you're celebrating out there. It is also a couple Crockett birthdays. We have Dylan Moreno and River Rooney. Happy birthday to you both, boys. Let's see. A couple more historical birthdays. Adam Smith was born today, back in 1723. Considered by a lot of people to be the father of modern economic theory. Or sometimes called the father of capitalism. A little more complex than that. He is quoted, he's one of this, history gets used like this a lot. It kind of frustrates me a little bit, but people quote people in historical events and maybe they don't quite know them as well as they think they do. So Adam Smith is quoted by a lot of people in his really famous book, The Wealth of Nations. Actually, it's got a really long title, but it's called Wealth of Nations. Really important instrumental book, but a lot of people that quote it have not really read it. And so it basically has something called the invisible hand, if you've ever heard that theory. And basically it's that just leave the economy alone and price or supply and demand and people's choices in their best interest will take care of things economically. It has a really important strand that leads to like libertarianism in modern terms. But Adam Smith was actually also, in addition to an economic, like he was part of the Scottish Enlightenment, friends with Hume and people like that, friends with Hume and people like that. And he also was a moral philosopher. In a lot of respects, he's more a moral philosopher than an economic philosopher. And there was a lot of morality infused through in some of his writings, but also through the Wealth of Nations. So while there's this aspect that just leave well enough alone and the invisible hand will take care of things, he also thought that that's not necessarily what's good for society. So in addition to like keeping your economic interests at heart in mind when people make decisions, he also thought they needed to keep what is best for the greater good in mind when everything they do as well too, because that was the moral thing to do. And so he feared things like monopolies. He feared like people taking their economic interest to like buy political influence and corrupting the system. So there's a lot more to his theory than a lot of people hear. So hopefully when you're a senior taking economics, check out Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, a really important book. And do the right thing, right? That was what Adam would say. It is also Geronimo's birthday. He was born in 1829. He was a fascinating and amazing Apache leader. All during the mid to late 1800s, there were lots of warfare going on between the Native Americans out west and the U.S. Army and the settlers that were pushing west. And eventually it was American policy to push the natives that refused to just like, settle down and live like in, neighborhoods and stuff like they want to, push them on reservations so that, settlement could go and economic progress could happen and stuff, right? Well, Geronimo was not having none of this. And he kept leading, in his mind, he was just trying to maintain his traditional lifestyle, but in the eyes of the U.S. Army and the government, like, out west in Arizona and places like that, they were like, revolting. And eventually Geronimo is going to be captured in one of the really great injustices that speaks volumes about the history of how this kind of went down for the Native Americans out west. He was the border between Mexico and the United States didn't really make a difference to a lot of the tribes living out there because they had a long fluctuating history of going back and forth between the two, right? There's a lot of influence between like tribes like in the Comanches went back and forth between the border, and the border didn't exist to them, right? So in the I think 1885, Geronimo was in northern Mexico, And the U.S. Army was tracking him down, but they're having such trouble tracking him down that they hired a bunch of Apaches who were like allied with the American Army, living on the reservation, to track him down. And they finally got Geronimo to surrender. And then they sent him on a train to San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, but eventually ended up in Florida, living in like kind of a jail at reservation. But not only Geronimo and the Apaches who had like, in the Americans' mind, revolted against their plan to put them on the reservation, they also sent the Apaches who had captured Geronimo. So even the ones who had worked with Americans to capture Geronimo were sent to live on this reservation in Florida just because, right? So eventually they're going to get back. The reservation is out in the Southwest now, and Geronimo is going to become like a really kind of folk hero, or folk figure. And like there's stories like he'd be on trains and like he'd sew like little buttons in his hat and pass them out to people for like nickels and stuff like that. He just sewed more buttons because he was a really fascinating figure, kind of the embodiment of back east, like what the Native American like warrior was like. So Geronimo, born in the state, 1829, a fascinating figure. If you want to read some interesting biographies, check out Geronimo because he is a pretty cool dude. All right, we're going to finish on the four-way test. The four-way test are the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Our virtue this month is June. There's no virtue, so I want you to laugh. I want you to be good to people. I want you to be good to yourself. I want you to get outside and enjoy some of the sunshine, but do it in the shade if it's too hot. And make sure to stay hydrated and drink lots of water. And I want you to make sure to read and play some games and have some fun and know that I'm missing y'all and I can't wait to see y'all. All right, talk to you tomorrow, guys. Happy Bloomsday.